our mix, you know, that Sheba, and she is we call her chunky. She's 10 pounds bigger than the other one, and she just wants to eat everything inside. Oh, there we go. Martha's got her dogs. Aw.
Oh, wait.
These are teacup chihuahuas. I do not recommend them, but I love them.
Sweet. So everyone, we are at time. Welcome back. I see that we have Nathan Lucy, our next presenter, who's able to join. Hello, hello. So Holly, are you going first or is Nathan going first? You're going first, right?
I was planning on going first. If you give me 4 seconds here, I'll be ready. I added a picture of my coworkers to my slide deck. So
our next presentation will be from Holly Schroeder and Nathan Lucy, and I believe Brett is assisting, right?
That is correct.
Perfect. So here we'll actually get to see the tools used, and we'll be able to see how folks can do some sort of some research and design techniques through it. And Holly, I'm going to spin up your presentation then.
Okay, sounds good. And Brett, can you Slack me the Mural link somewhere in our flurry of messages? I've misplaced it, and my computer decided to restart last night. Oh wait, never mind, I found it.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. 2 seconds here. More time to enjoy your bio break. I forgot I was going to need to have this. Okay. So I think I'm ready. Can you make that, can you go to the, can you make it big for me, Al?
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Okay, awesome. So these are my office mates. And if you were listening in on the break, the Basset Husky Lab mix, this is him helping his dad type. And then this is Evie, my Chihuahua mix. And I'll talk about work. We also have 2 cats and 2 guinea pigs because we're insane. And I'll talk a little bit about managing your furry coworkers in just a second. You can go to the next one. So I know we talked a lot already about designing your workspace. I think there's a couple places where we diverge if you're doing research remotely. So, you know, like others have mentioned, you know, we don't all have, not everyone's going to have the option to have a dedicated workspace. My husband actually suggested to me recently that I put on a hat when I'm working if I'm sitting on the couch so he knows I'm working, you know, to have some kind of visual cue. So I guess I need to have a hat somewhere. I'm gonna start wearing a baseball hat if I'm working, and it is really easy to lose track of time, especially thanks to Brian, who's also in the ADHD club. My concept of time is rather non-existent. So it is really easy for me to, you know, go way beyond what I planned to for work. And it's definitely, I have learned that having a dedicated space for work does help with that because this chair is just not as comfortable as the couch. So starter kit for remote research. You need some sort of calendar or scheduling tool. There are lots of free things out there. I don't want to give people the impression that you need to spend money. Google is free. They have a calendar. They have the equivalent of PowerPoint, which you can use interactively. They have Google Docs. There's that whole G Suite of tools. The learning curve is not steep. And I have a former business partner and I who for 10 years planned events that hosted up to a couple thousand people using just that suite of tools because we could work in a document at the same time. Computer, if you've got a desktop, that's okay. You're definitely going to need a camera. So if your computer doesn't have a camera, you can get webcams for cheap. I know that I run a free group for my neighborhood, and a lot of neighborhoods have them through Facebook. So, and you can also post in things like the STLX and STLX. And, you know, if you can't afford one on your own, chances are someone's got one collecting dust. Headphones with a microphone, I'm hearing impaired, so I really like the earbuds, and I tend not to use the audio through my computer because it's just not as good for me with the type of hearing impairment I have. Having earbuds actually in my ears is a better solution for me. You're gonna have to have a printer, and I know that this goes against our desire to stop killing trees, but I just try to recycle whatever paper I can. A smartphone or a phone and a camera, you're definitely going to be taking pictures of things, and knowing how to be able to take screenshots and fiddle with them. And you can use just like something as simple as Microsoft Paint, and there's also a lot of digital photo editing tools that are web-based, so you don't necessarily have to spend money. The only thing I think you really have to spend money on is you need good internet service, because you don't want to have connectivity problems. And as someone else mentioned, bandwidth may become a bit of an issue, and we'll just have to tackle that as we go. Sticky notes, Sharpie, clipboard. I find that a clipboard makes me feel kind of official. I always feel a little official and in charge when I have a clipboard. There's something about having that, but it's also a hard surface to write on. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you one of my hacks for capturing notes. And then I like analog and digital tools. I have what I call a modified bullet journal, which is really just an index book of lists, so that I carry it around so that I can capture things. And then when in a work type environment where I'm doing research, it gives me a way to quickly capture things. You know, sometimes electronics are great when they work, but sometimes they don't. Paper is pretty reliable. A comfortable chair, which I'm going to have to actually leave the house and go procure one of these. I have come to learn in the last week, as I realized that I need to be in my office. I am fortunate enough to have a room that I can dedicate to an office space. That my free chair I got from my neighborhood website is great for about an hour, and then I hate it. And so that ergonomics that I think Ken mentioned is really important. A dedicated space, so whether it's your kitchen table, your kitchen counter. I know I had a coworker this week, we were all sending in pictures of our various workspaces, and he really likes the standing desk and doesn't have one at home, so he was using the counter in his kitchen because he had a nice view of the backyard and he could stand to work. He likes to be able to kind of rock back and forth while he's working, so whatever works for you. I have some knee trouble, so I'm using a vintage sewing box as a footrest right now. Having some task lighting, if you are able to situate yourself near a window, I think, or if you can get a sun lamp, one of those that mimics that, just remember you're only supposed to use those like 15 minutes a day because you can't actually get a sunburn, just caveat there. That's advice from Mama Holly. And then for when you're doing video conferencing, you want to make sure that you have a minimally distracting background or a blank wall. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Maybe you just take the pictures off the wall in the space that you're in, or like Martha had some really nice plants behind her. You can probably use what you already have. You don't necessarily need to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. You know, you can hit up neighbors and friends for things. Just keeping the 8-foot distance, and maybe Lysol it for right now. And then flair. I think Brian talked about this too. To have some personalization in your space is a stress reduction. For me, I have pictures of me and my husband from our first few dates and the first wedding we went to together. I have my diplomas. I have some artwork that I did myself. I have some bits of flair again. I got a kick-ass trophy award that was like a community award that I'm very proud of. That is on my desk, and I also have a hedgehog that's wearing a birthday hat. Like those just little bits of things don't have to take up a lot of space, but can be stress reduction. You know, they can kind of help set that vibe. I know for me, I found that if I'm in a space that's really cluttered, I also have ADHD, so that clutter can be really overwhelming for me, and it can be a major distraction to doing work. If you're wanting to level up, you know, if you only have a desktop now and you can get a laptop, which my most recent laptop that I purchased, I'll try to share some tips for how to keep things affordable. I actually purchased at a pawn shop, which I thought was something that you only did if you were, I don't know, trying to get money for drugs. I thought that's what pawn shops were for. But there is a pawn shop in Afton, and the guy that runs the computers there does a really great job and was able to help me find something that was extremely affordable. And then I have a friend who's a back-end developer who helped me upgrade the RAM in it so that I could run Creative Cloud and it didn't go super slow. So sometimes, you know, I paid maybe less than $200 for my laptop, and it's a little bit older, but it was high end for its time. So it's got a really good processor in it. And I just needed some extra RAM. For $300, I have a laptop that works really well for me and has a large screen. I know the newer laptops tend to be lightweight and compact, but my eyeballs are old and I can't see crap on the tiny laptops. I really need that bigger laptop screen so that I don't have to wear my glasses constantly. The other thing to level up would be like a second monitor and a cord to connect to that. Actually, I have 3. I only have 2 in my office right now. I didn't specify what kind because there's like a million different kinds. You just need to match your monitor and your computer, and there's all kinds of things that you can do to match those up. Bluetooth headphones are always nice. If they have noise canceling them, even better. A dedicated room or area is ideal. A whiteboard's a nice to have, but not a must have. I got mine at the Goodwill outlet for like $5. A bookshelf so you can keep those reference materials and book close by. I recently upgraded my RCA tablet to an iPad and gotten a pencil, and I did some major shopping. So if you want to know where to get it cheap, you can Slack me. And that really helps me be able to skip that step of having to digitize my notes, which I find super helpful, especially with doing research, and I'm taking notes constantly. The other thing that I did, because if the dogs aren't being annoying, making noise, I have 2 cats that sound like a herd of elephants sometimes, is I got a white noise machine for free from someone in my neighborhood that is like the kind that you put outside the door of a therapist's office, and it helps reduce some of that ambient sound, and it's also probably relaxing for me. And if you really want to get leveled up and look super professional, you can get a backdrop stand and a photo backdrop really inexpensively. And the bonus is you can hide all that clutter and crap that you don't want anybody to see quickly. And I have one because I also do photography, and I think I spent maybe $30 total on I'm not using it today, but it's inexpensive, and it's a way to look, especially if you're dealing with clients, to look really professional outside of the office. So, okay, next one. So I have 2 things. Or I mentioned the Pomodoro timer. You do not have to spend money to go get one. I threw this in there at the last second. Tomatotimer.com has one that you can use. There's also some apps, and I do definitely recommend utilizing tools like that or setting timers because it is so easy, especially if my husband makes a lot of jokes about my inability to track time. If I go to someplace like Target, I have to set a timer because I have no concept of how long I'll be there for 3 hours because I have to read every product label. And then, so my note hack with the Post-it app is I have my trusty clipboard, and then I will load up several sheets with these Post-its in a grid. And what's nice about this is I can rearrange the information as I'm taking notes with research participants. And then I can just use that blue tape, the painter's tape, and tape them up on a wall and do a quick snap with the Post-it app. And it's a way for me to quickly digitize all the notes. And then if I do want to keep them, I can clip them together or hole punch them and stick them in a binder if I'm worried that that digital file may get lost. But I love the Post-it app, and just being able, instead of having this wild stack of Post-it poop all over my desk, it gives me a way to keep things tight and organized. And I think for research, especially, organization is really critical, that you're thinking ahead before you start your research. The actual research that you're doing oftentimes ends up being a fraction of the time that you spend in planning or doing the usability testing or interviewing. You know, I feel like I spend probably 4 times as much time on planning and synthesizing as I do on the actual research task. So it's my current setup. I've got my work issue laptop, an iPad, and then my Mac that I don't get to use as much as I like, and a little bit of flair. You can see my awesome kick-ass that is actually a donkey butt on my trophy. Very proud of that. Probably more proud of it than my WashU diploma up above for my master's. I like the trophy's cooler, in my opinion. Anyway, so, and these are just 2 IKEA desktops that I got, and I think it was like $28 for each of them total. So I bought the desktop and then the legs, and it was like $9 for the desktop and $4 for each leg. I don't know. I'm not a math magician. Somebody can figure that out. But I put them together in an L, and it's been working really great for me. So in preparation for research, I thought this might be helpful for people who are new to research. Organization is really kind of everything in terms of being prepared. You don't want to have your pants down in the middle of doing research. So I always make sure that I'm plugging in my devices and making sure that they're fully charged. I do print interview guides and any notes, contact info. I found out the hard way. You definitely do not, especially if you're doing remote interviews, want to have the contact info only in your computer, because inevitably when it's time to start, that's when your computer is going to want to update. And so you're not going to have time to go digging through email to find all that information again, as well as the schedule. So typically I will print, I think this is small enough, I'm not going to ruin anything here, but so I've got this that's just my interview schedule, and it's got who all of my contacts are, their email, if they have an assistant, their phone numbers, and then did I send the invitation? Do they have the WebEx info? Have I confirmed from them what time zone are they in? So when I'm doing my research planning for remote interviews, I try to keep in mind what time zone they're in so that I'm not requesting an interview with them at 6:30 in the morning if they live in California, that I'm being thoughtful about that planning. And that just saves me a lot of back and forth in doing the scheduling, because most researchers don't have someone to do that administrative work. I'll also finalize any stimulus, slide decks, and an intro slide. And then the other thing that I learned the hard way was that sometimes your cloud service doesn't want to, or your work server doesn't want to map for some reason the morning of an interview. So I make sure to save everything I need to my desktop for safety. And I just delete it when I'm done. It's a duplication of what's out there on the cloud. But that prevents me from being in a position where I'm about to start a presentation on WebEx and load a slide deck, but I can't open the file on the server. My network drives aren't mapping for some reason. So that just helps me a lot. 30 minutes before, I'll do a tech check and make sure that everything's functioning correctly. I also have like a squad or a team phone list. That way, if I am in a jam, I have someone that I can call who can help me. You know, if for some reason my WebEx, I do most of my remote interviewing through WebEx. If mine failed, they could launch it and they could assist, just like Al's doing for me now. I get all my programs and documents open, and I usually try to get in a snack. The one thing I've noticed is that with being a person who really gets into flow in this process, I forget to feed myself. And for a while, my husband was sending me texts to remind myself to eat, because I would just literally forget. I would go 6-8 hours without eating because I was just in that flow state. And then, you know, your brain needs food to do the job. 10 to 15 minutes before launch, I make sure everything's turned off. When you're working at home, you need to think about extra things like, you know, my dryer has the loudest buzzer I've ever heard in my entire life. Even though it's in the basement and I'm up on the main floor, if my dryer went off in the middle of an interview, my neighbors can probably hear it. So they would definitely be able to hear it on a call. Lovingly stash your office assistants, supply them with toys, bones, whatever they need, a nice Kong full of peanut butter. I live with Scooby-Doo, so he has to be kenneled in the basement as far as humanly possible away from me because he likes to participate in conference calls. His husky shows. Make sure that you have something to drink, because if you're going to be doing some talking, or God forbid you start with like a coughing spell, you're going to not want to be like, hey, would you mind hanging on while I go grab a glass of water? Make sure that my bladder knows when a conference call is about to begin and automatically fills. So I have learned to take that bio break, 10 to 15 minutes before a conference call. Otherwise, I'm tap dancing through the whole process. And most of my remote interviews are an hour. So it's a long time to be crossing your legs. And then the last thing I do is turn on my white noise machine. That has been an absolute godsend. It's good for me, and it also blocks out a lot of that ambient noise. Are there any, I feel like I should pause for questions for a second. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Ollie, I was just going to mention that Calendly is a great resource for allowing people to choose their own schedule when you're trying to invite people to interviews. I know for me,
Absolutely.
I know there's paid versions and there's free versions. I'm using the free at the moment, but it was able to, you could set up one event, I'm doing it right now, and it said, okay, I only want a maximum of 4 a day. They're an hour each. I need a half-hour break in between. I wanted to integrate with my Outlook calendar, my Gmail calendar, so that nothing else is conflicting with it. And it's done really well for me, even on the free version.
Yeah, and Doodle is the same way. If you don't need to, so for the people that I'm typically interviewing with, and I call it like light usability testing remotely, I have to maintain confidentiality, so they can't really know who each other are. So I'm not able to use things like Doodle, but it has been useful to me for other things in the past. And it's, you know, you give people a block of times on various days, and then everyone votes until you have a match. And so there are, and I'll get to the tools in a minute, there are so many tools. And right now, a lot of the vendors are giving free access to those tools in response to COVID-19. So we have even more available now than we did before. And I would say absolutely try some stuff out. I think one of the most important things with doing remote work, particularly in this environment, is use your friends to test out some different things. Al and I did a dry run with WebEx the other day just to make sure that everything was working correctly. I've tried different collaboration tools, and that's when I'll call on my friends to try it out before I try it out on a research participant. So any other questions before I continue? Comments? Okay. So one of the other things that I think is really nice to do when you're starting a presentation, like I said, most of the time I'm doing it WebEx or something like that. Sometimes we can see each other, sometimes we can't. If they can't see who I am, I try to post a picture so they have some idea. So it doesn't feel like Charlie's Angels, you know, like who is this random voice on the other end? So I'll post a picture of myself with a reminder of what my role is, and then I will welcome them. So, you know, welcome Lucreta. Lucreta was one of my friends in high school, so I used her name. And then I'll post the name of the study and the date, and then also the dial-in information if for some reason usually what happens is they'll connect to WebEx, but then they can't remember. They're like, what was the number? Even though I give it to them all at the same time, it just prevents them from having to dig through email. So it kind of helps move things along. I just think it's nice to be cordial and welcome them. And then I'll change it in between interviews for the next person to put their name. So in terms of organizing, I'm a big fan of workbooks of spreadsheets. I do everything from organizing my research participants, any sort of demographic data or other relevant data that I need when I'm selecting research. I also like to do a rainbow chart, which I can post a link in the Slack, which is a way for me to collect my findings and responses to questions and interviews. I do use a digital binder, and one of the advantages for me with working remote is that if I use a digital binder, and right now where I'm working, they're Microsoft-based, so I have a OneNote binder, and I'm able to share that binder with my team lead so that anytime they want, they can go look in and see where I'm at with my progress. I work with a fairly large team, but I am the lead and only researcher, so sometimes I'm kind of separated from the team. They're working on other activities, and I'm needing to do things to ramp up research. Collaboration tools, you've got things like Mural and Miro, but you can use something as simple as, depending on what the security is where you are, you can use things like Google Slides or a Google Doc and just be in there at the same time, which is nice. Love the Post-it app on my phone. Big DotGrid fan for notebooks. It just helps me. I end up having to do some lightweight design work sometimes, so having those dots gives me a way so that, you know, I don't have the wonkiest of drawings. Not that it's hugely important. I'm just doing some basic prototyping. A calendar, highly recommend keeping a calendar. And I record everything in my calendar, from the interviews, what the topic for the interview is going to be, all the contact information. But then I also block in time block for different tasks that I need to do to prepare for research. And then obviously cloud storage for digital artifacts and shared documents so that other people can have access to what I'm using. For research tools, communication, you've got, I think, you know, depending on the company that you use, they usually have predetermined this for you. If you are an independent contractor, you have a little more flexibility. The company I'm working with right now uses WebEx and Skype primarily, but I've used all kinds of different things like Zoom and Google Hangout. You're definitely going to need to have access to some sort of recording feature. Some of the research software tools have that built in, some don't. And then Brian just said right now Microsoft Teams is offering a free 6-month trial in response to COVID. So I think maybe we should post some of the trials, the freebies that we know about in the Slack channel, whether it's for research, design, or just general organization. So the welcome guide, my guide for the interview or the study, it's any stimulus or prototypes. I use a smartphone and a tablet as my camera and also a way to take notes digitally. Same thing, cloud storage. I need to be able to share my findings, typically not with the research participants, but with my coworkers. Whatever kind of notebook you have. I'm fortunate enough to work on a large enough team that I usually have a scribe for my interviews, which is wonderful. But I also still take some notes because it's inevitable that things will get missed. And it just kind of helps me keep on track. Collaboration software, presentation software, usability testing software, prototyping software. I feel like research requires that you have, you know, I technically am do research and design, but my preference is for research. But I am asked to do some design tasks from time to time. So research and design software apps, so many choices. I put this link in here. It's a list of over 200 different kinds of research and design software apps. And then here's just some icons. So you've got Adobe XD, Mural, Lucidchart, and Vision. I can't think of the name of the one that's the flame. And then the happy face is Balsamic. So I'll post that link again in Slack. And then now we're going to do a little Mural demo. So I guess I need to share my screen out, I think. And
Can you hear me?
Brett has to determine, you know, maybe you're trying to figure out the architecture for a website, or you're just wanting to understand how people would group or categorize things. You can do a card sort. I made this one really small just for demonstration purposes. So in a remote session like this, and I've actually done this in WebEx too, where I just typed out the words on the whiteboard in WebEx and asked them to sort it into categories on their own on a piece of paper, and then I had them read back the categories. Was it optimal, you know, and is fancy? No, but it got the job done and I got the information that I needed, which was how would they group this big list of things? What kinds of categories would they, or how would they group them? And then I asked them if they could name the categories. So we'll pretend that I'm asking Brett to help me figure out how he would lay out the tabs for a website. And these are all the tabs that I want to be represented. And so what he can do, do I need to unlock this? I might have locked it. No, I didn't. Okay. So Brett, if you could just, you know, in order, no right or wrong answers, what you think makes the most sense if you were thinking about visiting a website and the order of the tabs across the top when you first arrive at the website. If you could just organize those for me in a way that makes sense to you, or if there's anything that you think should be excluded and maybe in a different spot on the web page, you could cluster them together somewhere else on the side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know I was going to be doing some website design today. So,
If you could also kind of tell me your thought process as you're going through it, that would be great.
sure. Well, when I look at these, a few of them kind of, some of them are kind of obvious just based on standards, right? So I'll just move them over. So your login usually goes off to the right. Contact us is probably over that way somewhere. And chat now kind of goes with that. So I would probably put that, as subordinate to that. Oh boy, let's see. Gift registry, I would probably put close to the left because it's something I want someone to see first or early on. Track order and shipping would go together. Maybe favorites close to gift registry. Locations over here. I'm obviously just kind of moving them around as I go. See, gift registry. And just like anything, if you shift click, you can group things together and move them together. The cart, I guess, goes up even farther up there. So, I mean, these are just some basic thoughts, right? That maybe I go categories, then gift cards, and offers first, so that's the first thing that people see. I don't know.
Okay, great. So which of these items would you imagine if there's like a horizontal row across the top, which things would be in that top row? I see you've got some things that are like subordinate categories, so maybe you're envisioning like a drop down or just a lower placement.
Right. Yeah. So it would be, I was thinking, I mean, a drop down is the obvious thing that comes to mind. Yeah. So if I would have like the cart and login up top, and just for anyone who may be judging me, I am not a web designer. So I'm just making stuff up here as I go. I think that
a web designer is probably not who I would ask.
Okay.
For this kind of research, I would want to ask, I would be looking at potential consumers.
Okay.
So people who would be actually using the website, and I'm not going to spoil the website I took this category list from.
Yeah, no, it's So
yet.
Yep, I would say like contact us over there. I'm not sure where I would put shipping. I mean, it would be related to that. I mean, shipping to me doesn't seem like it would be something on a header tab, because that's something that you would have when you were ordering something. Although I guess it's good information to have. Gift registry would be at the top, just because that's something that I would, want to access, right? I would want to, and I'll move this down here. I love how this, and obviously all the tools have the alignment, indicators, so you can see when everything's lined up with each other. And so a gift card is something that you would buy, categories, offers. So I would, I mean, not knowing what type of site it is necessarily, I don't know that favorites would apply to me in this. So I'll go with this for now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your participation, Mr. Brett.
My pleasure.
Mr. G. Brett.
The G is silent.
I think oh, sorry. So Brett. I think that this is a really simple way to do an exercise and get an idea of what people's mental models are. Typically, it's done in person, but it can also be done remotely. And there are certainly programs out there where you can set up more extensive card sorts. And in fact, the company that I am working for currently has developed their own for card sorting. But sometimes you just need, you know, something a little simple, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Or if you were talking about maybe what are some things that we might want to include in a website, you can start collaborating by throwing the sticky notes on there and then hit up some other folks to do some sorting to help you figure out what the hierarchy is. I stole this list loosely from Bed Bath & Beyond. I dropped a couple things they had. They had a category for moving and something for like college dorms that I thought was kind of odd, so I left those out. And they have a top row and then a secondary row up at the top that all of these things are included in. But you've got, your mental model is pretty closely fitting to the average consumer. The other thing I wanted to show, and so for those who aren't familiar with your Mural on a PC, if you hit Shift and then you drag a box around here, you can click this button and then you can distribute horizontally and it makes them all cute and even. And you can do the same thing vertically. So you can either control click to select them, which I find more annoying. I just like to shift and draw a box. So shift and draw the box. And then you can do distribute vertically. Oops. Or how about horizontally? Nope. Align center. There we go. So you have some options for how you can do alignment. The other thing I wanted to show is that you could do things like journey maps. And Mural actually has quite a few different templates that are built in. And I know if you have a few extra minutes, Brett can show you some tips and tricks, and I'm sure that Nathan, if he's still around, has plenty of tips. So I did this journey map. If I was starting with someone, I would say, let's maybe identify the first and last step that you think is going to happen in the process. And then I would go through and say, let's fill in the stickies for what you think you might be doing along the way. And then what would you be thinking and what would you be feeling? And so I need to literally go buy an office chair. So I did this last night when I was thinking about buying it. This is the chair that I would like. I'm not getting it. It's out of stock. But so the general process for a journey map for something like this is, you know, I need to determine the criteria. What is it exactly that I want to get out of this product? And so my doing is things like, I'm going to browse Google images for office chairs, decide on features, price, and style. So I know what my budget is. I would love a mid-century modern vintage office chair, but that does not meet my price criteria. So that's not happening. So I'll probably be getting something new. And then, you know, I was thinking, I wish I knew what kind of chair was best for me because there's so much to choose from, and then feeling a little overwhelmed. And so you go through these steps, and these kinds of activities are things that I do both with my team when we're trying to decide what a persona might be thinking or doing, and then I will validate them with users to see if what we think our personas might do matches up with what's actually happening, what would actually happen. This was easy because I was using myself. So these were the things I got to the checkout and the anxiety hit. I was like, why is everything so expensive? We already said that I'm thrifty by nature. So I'm thinking, I hope I really like this chair or I'm going to be pissed. But then at the end, I have this please content moment because I get my chair and I get to spin around and try out all the different features. So there are lots of different things you can do in tools like Mural that can help with research that are collaborative, everything from personas to journey mapping, service mapping. You know, I think kind of the sky's the limit, and the best part is that you can collaborate on the spot. Brett, do you have any hot tips for using Mural? Or Nathan?
No. Yeah, I mean, just real quick, I have to drop off here in just a minute, but I mean, it's it's like any tool, and kind of like Nathan said, it's really about what you need to do, um, and the jobs to be done, and which tool meets your need. Brian mentioned earlier when he was talking. Sometimes it just depends on what your client uses, right? Sometimes you don't have a choice in which specific tool you use, and so my suggestion would be, and it's just like in my job in previous jobs, I work with government clients, and they use Microsoft Office a lot. Well, anytime they roll out a new version of Microsoft Office, they have to have like training classes to teach people how to use the new version of Microsoft Office. And what I try to get across is don't worry about the individual features, right? I mean, the concepts are the same across all applications. You don't need to know how to use Word. You need to understand how a digital word processing tool works,
Sweet.
right? And I think it's the same general approach here with these digital whiteboarding tools.
It sounds like another argument for Nathan's point. An agreeable.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we are getting close to the 20-minute over mark. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Again, I want to thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you for the folks that showed up for today on a Saturday morning. I am going to leave how you can contact us open, but I'm going to close this down at the 20-minute mark. So you got about 3 minutes if you need to write down an email or something like that. But we will have our Slack line open. So if at any time you want to speak more on this, or you're wondering about certain resources we talked about, please go to the Slack line. And from there, you'll be able to find out any of the information we talked about today. So past that, thank you everyone for coming out virtually. And I hope that you have a good rest of your week and stay safe out there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, all. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
It's just me, you, and Brett, I think.
Okay, cool. Then I'll close it down. Yeah, I didn't know if anyone wanted to
But
write.
wait, don't close yet. I'm going to copy and paste from the chat into the Slack before you close it. So let me just do that real fast. Let me just make sure it works before you. Okay, we're good.
All right, bye.
Bye.